Imagine this. You're lying awake at 2:47 a.m. Not in pain, not in danger, just hollow. Your phone lies face down beside you, still warm from the heat of your thumb. You've scrolled past wars, weddings, sunsets, and self-help quotes. You've double-tapped strangers' lives, watched 10-second miracles on loop. Your fridge is stocked. You have Wi-Fi. You're safe, even comfortable. And yet something aches in you, quietly, persistently, like a presence that used to be there, but isn't anymore. Not a person, not a purpose, but something closer, more intimate. It's not depression, not exactly, nor is it boredom. It's something more elusive, a sense that you're living beside your own life, that you're functioning, producing, responding, but not being. Like the lights are on, but no one's home. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, where did my soul go? When did it vanish? Or worse, did I trade it for something? No one told you this would happen, that the price of convenience would be meaning, that in the process of optimizing, automating, maximizing, something sacred would be lost. The quiet rituals, the deep silences, the capacity to sit with wonder or grief without needing to package them into 280 characters. Modern life rewards function over feeling, efficiency over essence. We've streamlined everything: our food, our friendships, our mornings, our thoughts. We quantify what we eat, track how we sleep, measure what we feel, but the soul, it refuses to be measured. It slips through the cracks of our calendars and apps, invisible to our metrics and machines. We are the most connected generation in history. Yet loneliness spikes like a global fever. We have access to infinite information, yet we hunger for wisdom. We can simulate almost anything: pleasure, attention, intimacy. It leaves us starving. What are we starving for? What if the thing you think is missing, more success, more love, more freedom, isn't the answer at all? What if the ache you feel is not for something new, but for something ancient, something you've always carried, something this modern world systematically teaches you to ignore? Aldous Huxley once warned of a future not of tyranny, but of distraction. A world in which truth would drown in a sea of irrelevance. But we've gone further. We haven't just drowned truth, we've anesthetized the soul. What is the soul, really? Not in the religious sense, necessarily, but in the felt sense, the part of you that dreams, that weeps at music, that senses sacredness in the simplest things. The wind through trees, the way a child laughs, the moment someone truly sees you. That part of you, fragile, poetic, unproductive, has no place in a system designed for speed, control, and profit. It is, in the logic of modernity, inefficient. And so, quietly, it is exiled. But the soul does not go quietly. It whispers. It protests in symptoms, in burnout, in restlessness, in addictions we can't explain. It shows up as the quiet dread you feel on your commute, the grief you can't name when the weekend ends, the numbness after scrolling for an hour through lives that seem more vivid than yours. You may think, I'm just tired, I'm just busy, I'm just behind. But what if that's not it? What if you are spiritually malnourished? What if your life is full, but your soul is starving? In the words of Carl Jung, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And modern life makes that absurdity not just possible, but normal. It hands us tools of constant avoidance, entertainment on demand, validation on command, endless work to justify our worth. We've built a world where it's easier to run from yourself than to meet yourself, So let me ask you this. When was the last time you were truly still? Not scrolling, not planning, not escaping, just present. Do you even remember what it feels like to be whole, to be unhurried, to feel unnot as a hashtag, but as a holy trembling? This isn't a small problem. This is the quiet epidemic, beneath all others. And maybe the real danger isn't that we lose our souls all at once, but that we lose them slowly, piece by piece, in ways so subtle we don't even notice. Until one day, we wake up in a life that looks successful on the outside, but inside. We are strangers to ourselves, so the question is not, what do you want out of life? The real question is, what does your soul want? And more urgently, are you still listening? We think of disconnection as an external problem, too many distractions, too little time, too much noise. But the real severance is internal. It's not just that we've lost touch with nature or tradition. It's that we've lost touch with ourselves, with the soul's quiet signals, the body's wisdom, the psyche's ancient language. Modernity didn't just change how we live. It changed what we believe about what it means to be human. And in that shift, something sacred collapsed. I, the mechanical self, from being too producing for most of human history. Life was shaped by cycles of seasons, of rituals, of silence. And story, people were seen as souls in motion, not just minds in meat machines. Suffering had meaning. Community offered grounding. Stillness wasn't a luxury, it was the rhythm of life. Then came the Industrial Revolution, and with it, a new kind of human story. Suddenly, the world wasn't a mystery to be lived in, but a machine to be mastered. Nature became resources, time became money, and the self, it became a productivity unit. Today, your worth is measured by output. Your identity is fused with your career. Your body is optimized. Your emotions are branded as mental health issues to be treated and managed, not explored and understood. Carl Jung warned of this mechanization. He wrote that modern man is hopelessly unconscious of what he really is, not because he lacks intelligence, but because he no longer listens to the voice of the soul. He is overeducated and underrooted, overstimulated and underinspired. When your inner world is ignored long enough, it doesn't vanish, it distorts. What you don't feel consciously, you will act out unconsciously, too. The crisis of meaning, the soul thrives on meaning, not productivity, not pleasure, but depth. But in modern life, meaning is often flattened. Transcendence is replaced by content. Spiritual longing is rebranded as a shopping impulse. And suffering is treated as a malfunction, not a message. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, said that when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. He called this the existential vacuum, silent hunger that pervades even the most outwardly successful lives. And this is where addiction, compulsive behavior, and chronic dissatisfaction sneak in, not as moral failures, but as substitute rituals. For a soul denied its native language, you scroll not just to be entertained, but to forget you're lonely. You work not just to survive, but to avoid stillness. You seek validation not because you're shallow, but because the soul needs reflection and finds none. 3. The disowned self, shadow, numbness, and false identity. The soul is not just a poetic idea, is the totality of your being, your feelings, your wounds, your longings, your untamed truths. When parts of you are deemed irrational or inconvenient, they are pushed into the unconscious, where they fester. Jung called this the shadow. All the parts of you that have being disowned to maintain your socially acceptable identity. In modern life, we are taught to present a brand, not a being, to become likable, not whole. We are rewarded for suppressing grief, doubt, rage, and wonder, and punished for expressing them. But the shadow does not disappear. It leaks into dreams, into addictions, into projections, into unexplained anxiety and chronic discontent. When you no longer feel your sadness, you also stop feeling your joy. When you disconnect from your pain, you also sever your passion. Numbness doesn't protect you, it erases you, and so we walk around in curated shells, calling it normal. But inside, something primal is grieving. Grieving the self we abandoned in order to survive. For philosophical roots, the soul, viz. The system philosophers from Schopenhauer to Heidegger saw this coming. Schopenhauer spoke of the will, a blind striving force at the root of human suffering. Modern life, he might say, has weaponized this will. It dangles endless desires in front of us: more success, more status, more stimulation, while making inner peace seem boring or worse. Unattainable. Heidegger warned that modernity would cause us to forget being itself, that we would become so consumed by tasks and tools that we'd lose touch with the mystery of simply existing. He called this falling into the day, living not from your authentic core, but from what they expect, what they admire, what they reward. In this way, the soul is not just neglected, it is colonized. Its language is translated into metrics. Its longings are monetized. Its pain is pathologized. And over time, the question becomes, who am I when no one is watching? And even scarier, do I still exist when I stop performing? The false gods of modernity. In place of soul, we are given dopamine. Short-term stimulation becomes the substitute for long-term purpose. Influence becomes the substitute for intimacy, and algorithms become the substitute for intuition. This isn't just unhealthy, it's dehumanizing, because the soul isn't something you can hack. It doesn't care about your personal brand or your 5-year plan. It speaks a different languages, symbolic, mysterious. It comes alive in silence, in solitude, in suffering that is honored, not fixed, in creativity that doesn't sell, in prayer that isn't posted, in the ordinary sacredness of being alive. But the modern world has no patience for this. It values the visible over the invisible, the measurable over the meaningful, the profitable over the poetic. And so slowly we forget. You are not broken, you are disconnected, not just from others, not just from nature, but from the part of you that remembers before the noise, before the roles, before the optimization, that you are not here to perform, you are here to be. The inner path back to wholeness. If disconnection is the wound, then reconnection with the soul, with the self, with the sacred is the healing. But here's the truth, no one can hand you your soul. No system can restore it. No quick fix, no app, no therapist, no ideology, not on their own. Because the soul doesn't return through effort, it returns through invitation, through attention, through surrender. You do not force wholeness, you create space for it. 1. Listening to the whisper beneath the noise. The first step isn't action, it's attention. In a world that screams for your focus, the soul whispers. It doesn't demand, it invites. And you can only hear it in moments of stillness. Not necessarily silence, but inner stillness. A willingness to sit with yourself without judgment, without productivity, without escape. Ask yourself, When do I feel most alive? What have I exiled from my own heart? What pain am I avoiding? What truth keeps resurfacing in quiet moments? These are soul questions, and they don't have answers in the logical sense. They have depth, and depth changes you. The philosopher James Hillman once said, "The soul is more interested in meaning than solution." So begin not by fixing, but by feeling. That is where wholeness begins too. Shadow integration, becoming what you avoid, you cannot. Be whole while rejecting parts of yourself. The soul doesn't deal in good or bad, it deals in real. Your anger, your fear, your grief, your longing, these are not flaws to eliminate. They are facets of your totality. And what you disown does not disappear, it controls you unconsciously. Carl Jung called this the work of shadow integration, facing what you've buried, exiled, or ignored, and welcoming it back with compassion. This is not therapy jargon. It's spiritual truth. Every time you listen to the wounded child inside you, without dismissing it, every time you feel rage and ask what it's protecting, every time you stop numbing and choose to grieve, you recover a piece of your soul. 3. Ritual and slowness. Reclaiming sacred time. The soul does not move at the speed of Wi-Fi. It unfolds in ritual, in slowness, in presence. Modern life cuts time into pieces and sells it. The soul asks you to take it back, not just for rest, but for reverence. Start small, a walk at sunrise, where you don't check your phone, a nightly candle lit in silence, just to honor the day. A weekly practice of writing, not to produce, but to listen to what your inner self is trying to say. Reading sacred texts or poetry that awakens awe, not just information. These are not aesthetic choices. These are soul repairs. Without slowness, there is no reflection. Without ritual, there is no remembrance. And without remembrance, the soul withers. For grief, as a doorway, the soul often returns through grief, not just personal grief, but spiritual grief, the ache of what has been lost that you never fully named, the loss of innocence, the loss of wonder, the loss of connection to your own body, nature, the sacred. Instead of pathologizing your sadness, ask what it's mourning. Let it speak. Grief isn't the opposite of healing. It is healing, not in a linear way, but in a way that transforms the heart. To feel deeply again is not a weakness. It is a return to a Linus 5. Reconnecting with mystery, the soul doesn't just want to feel. It wants to worship, not in the dogmatic sense, but in the original sense of awe, the feeling that life is deeper than what appears, that something greater is moving through you and around you. You do not need to believe in God, but you need to make room for mystery, whether through nature, prayer, meditation, creativity, dreams, psychedelics, or silence. The soul thrives when life is not reduced to mechanism. Start looking again at the sky, the trees, your breath, your dreams. Start asking not just, how do I fix myself, but what is life asking of me? This is not delusion, it is devotion. And devotion reconnects you to the sacred purpose buried beneath the noise. 6. Becoming undivided. Ultimately, the inner path is about undoing the division inside you, the split between your mask and your truth, between your mind and your body, between your doing and your being. When you begin to live from the soul, you stop needing to prove your worth. Start telling the truth, even when it's inconvenient. Feel your emotions fully, without drowning in them. Move with life rather than against it. You don't achieve wholeness, you remember it. You return to it, and each act of self-honesty, each moment of stillness, each sacred choice is a homecoming. You were never meant to become a brand. You were never meant to be efficient all the time. You were never meant to carry this much alone. Your soul remembers what the world has forgotten, that you are already enough, that being alive is sacred, that wholeness isn't something you chase, it's what arises when you stop running. The way forward, reimagining a soulful life, reconnecting with the soul, is not a destination. It is not something you arrive at with enough healing, enough journaling, enough spiritual practice. It's a way of moving through the world, a way of being slow, honest, inwardly attuned. To live a soulful life in a modern world is to resist its central command. Don't feel, don't stop, don't ask why, and instead to ask the forbidden questions. What if success isn't worth my soul? What if slowing down is not laziness, but wisdom? What if the emptiness I feel isn't a flaw, but a message? A soulful life is not the same as a comfortable life. It may require you to disappoint others, leave behind roles that no longer fit, or embrace truths that shatter your illusions. But what it offers in return is something far more profound than comfort, aliveness, integrity, peace, meaning. 1. From fragmentation to wholeness, modernity fragments us into roles, into screens, into metrics. Soul asks for integration, for all parts of you to be allowed, seen, and held. This doesn't require quitting your job or moving to the mountains. It requires presence, showing up to your life with open eyes and an open heart. You can do this right here, right now, in how you breathe, in how you speak to yourself, in what you choose to make sacred each day. Even the smallest ritual, lighting a candle before sleep, walking without headphones, pausing before you speak, can become a doorway back to the soul, to from noise to stillness. Reclaiming your soul will often feel like swimming upstream. The world wants you noisy, distracted, and productive, but your soul thrives in stillness. So the way forward is not to do more, it is to do less with more presence. It is to find small ways to turn down the volume of the world and turn up the volume of your own knowing. Meditation, prayer, journaling, silence, art, nature. These are not hobbies. They are how you remember who you are. 3. From loneliness to communion. A disconnected world breeds lonely individuals, but soul work is never truly solitary. As you begin to reconnect, you start to find others walking this path. They may not be loud, they may not be many, but they are their quiet souls, sensitive rebels, seekers of something real. Find them, or become one, so that others may find you. The soul does not need crowds. It needs communion with kindred spirits, with nature, with the sacred dimension of life. 4. Living as if your soul matters. Most radical act in a disconnected world is to live as if your soul is real, sacred, and worth listening to, not as a metaphor, not as a luxury, but as the center of your life. This doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It means infusing them with meaning, doing work that aligns with your values, loving others from a place of authenticity, creating beauty where it's been stripped away. Living from the soul doesn't mean escaping life. It means entering it more fully, more vulnerably, more deeply, more truthfully. Final words: we are not meant to feel this numb. We are not meant to be this busy. We are not meant to lose our inner world in the pursuit of outer approval, to reclaim. Your soul is not self-indulgence. It is an act of resistance. It is a return to truth. It is the first step toward remembering why you are here. And perhaps that's the real secret: you were never disconnected from your soul. You were only taught to stop listening. But the moment you begin again, the moment you make room, it returns not as a stranger, but as the part of you that never left.